Hi, it's Marion from the Scorched Earth Kitchen. I am home from work and this evening we are making mac and cheese. Alright, and these are the ingredients we are using. This is going to be a vegan mac and cheese, so we're going to start by making a cream sauce made of these 2 packages of tofu. I'm just going to drain the blocks, rinse them off, and then drop them into my food processor. I'm going to crumble them into my food processor rather. This here is turmeric, salt, garlic powder, onion powder, and nutritional yeast. These are basically the flavor enhancements, and I will, it's not pictured here, but I'm going to add in probably a tablespoon or so of mustard. And this is a block of vegan cheese. It's already sliced as, well, it's pre-sliced, but I'm just going to run it through my box grater. And then I will stream in some soy milk, and also not pictured, I'm going to add in probably about a 1/4 cup of cornstarch to help the sauce set up in the oven like a normal cheesy mac would do. And then of course I have my box of shells. Okay, so it's 6:54 p.m. I have already put some water in a pot and added some salt, and it's starting to make a little bit of noise, but it's going to be a few minutes more still, so I'm going to go ahead and get the rest together. Alright, so we've got the water starting to boil, and right now I'm going to pull the cream sauce together by crumbling in a 1.5 blocks of tofu into my food processor. They are already drained and rinsed, and I'm pretty sure 1.5 blocks will be enough, along with the soy milk and the grated cheese when I add that in, to cover all of the shells once they're cooked. So I'm going to go ahead and start adding ingredients for the cream sauce to the food processor right now. Okay, so that's what the tofu looks like crumbled into the food processor. That's 1.5 blocks, and it's actually filled up pretty high. Let me turn it back to the side here. So it's about halfway to the top, so that's a good bit right there. And then I'm going to go ahead and add the other ingredients. Okay, and that is all of the other ingredients, and I was a little sloppy getting the cornstarch in there, but that's okay. We'll clean all that off the food processor later. So the first thing I'm going to do off camera to spare you some noise is just blend all of this together, and then I will drizzle in the soy milk from the top. The time is now 7:10, and it's taken a few minutes to get the water boiling, but we're finally there. So now let's go ahead and pour in the shells. This is a 1-pound box of shells. And one thing I forgot to mention that we're going to deal with right now is that it's a good idea to add a little bit of oil to your pasta cooking water, just to help keep it from sticking together as it cooks. So there we go with a couple of tablespoons or so of just some olive oil that I had handy. So let's give that a good stir. And at this point, with the water, with the temperature still boiling, we can just let that cook uncovered for the next few minutes until it's done. And meanwhile, over here, this came together just as the water was boiling. I have the cream sauce ready. So it's, I'm just tilting it like this to give you a sense. I think I used about 2 cups of the soy milk. I really just eyeballed it. Freeport it rather, but just to have it a little bit on the thin side, because with the cornstarch that I added, it will set up in the oven, and we want to still have a nice consistent but creamy result. Okay, so now we have the tofu cream sauce in a mixing bowl, just a medium-sized mixing bowl. This one measures about 9 or 10 inches across, and I have gone ahead and grated the block of Chao, the vegan cheese, into my box grater that has this handy catch thingy. And so now they are together in the mixing bowl. I'm going to give those a quick stir, and then we will incorporate them. Once the shells are drained, we will kind of combine it all and then pour it into a pan. Okay, so now it's 7:24 and these shells should be pretty much done. I actually turned the heat on the stove off a couple of minutes ago when I taste tested one of the shells, and it was about done, but it had a tad more firmness to the bite than what I wanted, figuring that as long as I left it on the heated burner, they would continue to cook a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and drain these now. Alright, and here we are back over at the stove top, not with the pot on top of the same burner, but they've been drained at the sink into a colander, and there they are back in the pot. And one of the things I forgot to do, which doesn't really matter, but recipes will typically tell you to start by preheating your oven, greasing a baking pan and setting it aside and all of that. We haven't done either of those yet, but it's okay because we can go ahead and do it now. 375, get that preheating, and it's totally fine because if it's not all the way heated when we are ready to place the pan of shells and cheese into the oven, that's okay. The oven will continue to heat up, and it's really not a world of difference in terms of cook time, and the end result will be fine. And the other thing we'll need to do in a minute is grease my glass baking dish. But the first thing I'm going to do right over here is add the cheese sauce mixture to the shells. Alright, and that's what it looks like all stirred together. And with shells in particular, it's a good idea to really stir in your cheese mixture well so that you can get as much cheese into each of the individual shells as possible. Okay, and I've started to spread it out, and I'm going to continue to do that. This was a 1-pound box of shells. If you wanted to fill a larger glass baking dish like this, I think this is 10 by 13 or 14 or something. It's bigger than a 9 by 13. But if you wanted to fill it up to the top, you might consider using 1.5 pounds of the pasta. I've done that before. There we go. We're up to 375 now. Yeah, but you could go up to 1.5 pounds, you know, or if you had several people to feed, or if you just wanted to have a lot of leftovers. The main thing is just to make sure you get it all the way to the edges and that you have a pretty even layer, just to ensure that it cooks pretty evenly. Now, you might be using regular dairy cheese, and you know, that's fine, you do you. Since this is vegan cheese, and a lot of vegan cheeses behave differently in the when they're exposed to heat, I'm going, like this one in particular, the Chao. I love it. It's probably one of the best tasting vegan cheeses that I've tried, but it's a little weird. It tends not to melt quite right when it's exposed to heat directly. You have to cover it with something, or, you know, it works fine in quesadillas, but straight on like in a pizza, not so much. So in a second here, I am going to cover this with a sheet of foil so that it can steam in the oven. And there we go, and we are ready to go ahead and put this in the oven now. There we go, into the oven, 375. I'm not going to set a timer because, as I've mentioned in some other videos, I tend to go by smell. But if you need a timer, I've got 7:39 it says up here. It's not wanting to focus, but so if you need a timer, if you want to make sure you don't forget about it and it burn on you, set a timer for 30 minutes just so it'll prompt you after that long to come back and check. But yeah, otherwise, you know, if it starts to smell like mac and cheese in your house, check it then. You know, mainly the way that you know it's done is when it's nice and hot and bubbly. So, alright, so it is now 8 o'clock. The mac and cheese has been in the oven, shells and cheese has been in the oven for about 20 minutes. I've taken these last few minutes to wash all the dishes I created in order to get these shells and cheese into the oven. So now the kitchen counter is cleared, dishes are washed. I still have probably at least 10 more minutes before it'll be done. So now I'm going to enjoy a beer. Best cheap beer ever. 84 cents a can at Trader Joe's, the chocolate stout. Good stuff for 84 cents. Good times. Okay, so now it's 8:10 p.m. I'm not exactly smelling anything yet, but it seems like I ought to check. Alright, I can hear that sizzling, and now that I can hear it, I can also smell it with the oven door open here. So I'm going to go ahead and take this out now. Alright, and there we go. Pull the foil off here, being careful to use a mitt because it's hot out of the oven. And there we go. Perfect. Okay, so this steamed in the pan just like I had hoped it would, and you know, you can give it a quick stir at this point or leave it alone. It's up to you. Let's also not forget to turn that off. And funny, after all that build-up, I kind of only want a small bowl, maybe because it's after 8 o'clock and I'm just starting to be past the time when I'm hungry. So that is what we're doing. Yeah, I think that's got it. You're going in the fridge. And that was my vegan shells and cheese recipe. Now, if you are not vegan, don't care about trying alternatives like tofu, that's fine. If you Google Food and Wine, macaroni and cheese, there's a pretty good recipe out there from their 25th anniversary edition of their magazine, I believe. And what I make for mac and cheese is basically a veganized version of that, where they show you how to make a cream sauce basically by using heavy cream and simmering it in a pot and melting in some cheese. But it's mac and cheese is pretty easy to make. There are a lot of different ways to make it, and in addition, there's a lot more you can do with it than just make mac and cheese. It can be the base for a chicken and broccoli bake, any kind of veggie bake. You know, it could be a clean out the fridge recipe, just stir in additional things. You know, some things you might want to saute before you add them in, like onion, you know, veggies that are really fibrous. But, you know, broccoli steams when covered, so you could pretty much drop it in when you're ready to start cooking it. And, you know, just so many different ways to make a big meal that'll last and give you plenty of leftovers and that tastes great and is good for you. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it and found it useful, and I look forward to cooking for you again here in the Scorched Earth Kitchen. Take care.